Hey, welcome back, Silver Bull fans. Welcome back to Silver Bull channel. Um, we often hear about peak oil being a coming disaster, but what if our technology advances to the point where we don't need as much oil as we did before? One of the most inefficient current users of oil is the internal combustion engine. When you think of the internal combustion engine, you don't realise that it's actually a highly inefficient engine um, with huge amounts of the energy in the petroleum being wasted in noise and heat. If you don't believe an internal combustion engine produces a lot of noise, take your muffler off and have a listen to it. You'll very quickly realise that an internal combustion engine creates a huge amount of noise and a huge amount of heat. That's why you have a radiator trying to cool the thing down all the time. And it's a really inefficient use of the energy stored in petroleum, petrol, gasoline, whatever you want to call it. One of the things in your standard four-cylinder engine with your cylinder heads as opposed to a rotary or whatever, or a diesel, you have spark plugs. Now these may be computer controlled, but the simple fact of the matter is the spark plugs generate a little spark which ignites the mixture. But as this little post here states, you can actually run a lot leaner fuel mixture, i.e. use less fuel to power the cylinder head, but you need a lot higher spark then. And the problem is, if you have too high a spark on your spark plug, it's going to erode the electrodes and you're going to be replacing your spark plugs all the time. As it is now, most spark plugs can last, a year, 2 years, some even longer. Some are platinum tipped now, so that they last for a long time. But over time, they slowly become more inefficient as the electrodes wear out. Hence, when you have a tune-up, one of the things they do is replace the spark plugs. What they're talking about here is, instead of using spark plug, using a new one that doesn't have electrodes, but rather concentrated optical energy, namely lasers. And not only do you have the advantage that you don't have the electrode problem, you also have the advantage that you can direct the ignition point towards the center of the fuel mixture. With the current spark plugs, it ignites the top of the fuel mixture, and all this is happening in less than a second. But as this ignition takes place, a lot of the energy in that is dissipated into the metal. They say here cold metal. Obviously, it's still hot enough to burn your hand if you've ever worked on a car engine, or emptied out the oil before it's had a chance to cool down. But what happens? The cylinder walls absorb all the heat from the explosion, and they, as it says here, quench the flame front just as it starts to expand, i.e., makes it more inefficient. Lasers, on the other hand, can focus their beams directly to the center of the mixture. Without quenching the flame front, it expands more symmetrically and up to 3 times faster than those produced by spark plugs. I.e., you get a better burn, your power wave, as it were, your explosion waves, more of a symmetrical force, which means you get a more efficient push down on that cylinder. The advantage of this is it gives a more efficient combustion. You can run a leaner fuel, and for the same results. They're saying they're still working on it, but the interesting thing with this is I would think it wouldn't require too much change to the internal combustion engine itself regarding its design. You might change the shape of the cylinder head or something like that, but by the sounds of it, on the whole, it would still be what most people recognise as internal combustion engine. It's just that it would be a lot more efficient, and certainly would probably give the hybrids a run for their money. So there is things happening in the world that may vastly improve the efficiency of the internal combustion engine, and if so, may at least lessen somewhat the demand on the world's oil supply. It certainly wouldn't destroy it, but if and with millions of Chinese and Indians hopping in the cars each year and wanting their slice of the wide open spaces, as it were, the world's going to have to think a lot smarter with things like this to try and offset peak oil. It doesn't necessarily have to be a disaster if we get smarter about the way we currently use our oil. And there are other ways to make fuel as well, biodiesel, other things like that. So, there's a lot of people on the planet, but that means there's a lot more people thinking about problems. And to those who anti growth, uncontrolled growth, they need to think about the fact that if cleverly designed and well planned, you can actually get a lot more. You can actually support a lot more people if you have the use of intelligence. For example, Australia, large country, however, it didn't support a very large population at the time of the arrival of the European white man, whatever, because the people present were living a nomadic lifestyle. Not completely nomadic, i.e. one tribe didn't wander all across the continent. They had their own little patches of land, but on the whole, they were hunter-gatherers. They weren't farmers. And you can go into issues of race and that, and we've had protests recently in Australia about Aboriginal sovereignty and stuff like that. At least small groups, 200 people, but obviously they're trying to make a point. But the simple fact of the matter is, history teaches us, no matter the colour of the skin of the people, they could be identical for all purposes, but history has always taught us that farmers have pushed out the hunter-gatherers time and time again. And anyone who doesn't believe that's just what's going to happen is naive. And really, if you were a hunter-gatherer, your only choice was to learn how to adapt to the new, more advanced civilization. And that's just the hard fact of life. And those who want to live in the past are fools. We can learn lessons from the past. But, I can't change the fact that my Irish and Scottish ancestors were screwed over by the English, and nor am I going to hate myself because I'm part English as well. That's just the fact of history. There's lots of people who can run around with a chip on their shoulders, but that's not going to get you anywhere. So, technology, the advance of civilization, it doesn't all have to be bad. Some of it can be good. And sometimes it's a case of not working harder but working smarter. Have you come across any recent technological ideas that you think are really good ideas and that we might see in production in due course? This, I think, may indeed revolutionise the car production industry, and as fuel prices continue to rise, it would be nice to have something that meant I had to buy less at the pump. Silver Bull Channel out.